Welcome everyone to our very first office hours. Want to give Katie a really good shout out because she's been amazing in helping us to set this up and get this started for all the Domotz users. My name is Destiny Bertucci, and I am here with the amazing Rory. If you want to introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm Rory Anderson. I've worked with Domotz for a good long time here and really excited to see people succeed. This office hours is like the perfect time.
I definitely agree. I think one of the things that we wanted to do. Oh, hey Matt. I was like, how's it going? So yeah, definitely. We're wanting to get this started and we wanted to have a place that was a neutral zone, right? Like to where we could actually have some conversations that matter to you. And so please hit up the comments, ask some questions. Anything goes, right? Like we want to be able to have a good conversation here and be able to get some information to you from us. I mean, like I'm pretty good at solving problems and figuring out how you can use this from an MSP or internal IT type of a point of view. And Rory is amazing at knowing all the things within the Domotz community as well as he was already recognizing names of which that was on there. And I think what we are wanting to do is just kind of dive into the product. We've had a lot of releases, Rory. Like, I mean, there's been a lot of things that have been coming through that we know you guys have been asking for. And so we definitely want to make sure that we address those and kind of give maybe even a high level walkthrough if you want. But again, if you guys want to put any questions at any time to put into here, please, this is for you. We want to be able to make sure that if there's anything that you've been curious about, that we would be able to actually go into. And Roy, I don't know if there's anything that you want to add in
Yeah,
here.
I do. One of the things I actually love about this is that Domotz has been around long enough now that there are customers here that have worked with Domotz longer than I worked with the company. One of the things I'm so excited about these office hours for is the chance that as some of these customers come through, there are so many expertise that are just good to share. I mean, MSPs know it, right? The community is what really makes the difference across the board for them. So hearing your voices, make sure you're throwing in your questions, but also feel free to answer them across the board as well. The expertise out there is real.
Definitely. And I think one of the things that I like to kind of like high level, right? Like I know we use some terms in here of like RBAC, device profiles, improved topology, alert dependency, all these things, right? Those are just words in my opinion. And one of the things that I like to do is how does that actually help me, right? Like as an MSP or as anybody that's out there in the networking world, like what are these releases actually doing for me? And so I kind of wanted to start with maybe we can just kind of riff on a little bit of our back. So for me, it's control, right? Like we always hear about least privilege. We always hear about making sure things are for who they need to be. What can I use? What can I not use? Things in those natures. And so when we talk about control, it's what if I'm giving my users a view only that they can only read and see what they only need to see? Well, that's fantastic, right? Especially if you're an MSP or if you're like internal IT, like what I used to do is I called it the green dashboard, right? Where we always have heard that, where it's like my management or my directors would be like, what is everything okay? Is everything up? Well, it's like, yeah, in your perception of the world that would matter to you, everything is up. Now, are we doing some stuff on the backside and preparing things? Absolutely, but we don't need you to see the yellow right now, right? So it's one of the things where it's like, you're able to present, you're able to do that customization, and you're able to actually present some dashboards, present some views of which that are pertinent to them. And if you're larger and you have like different silos or things like that that are up, like I only work on switches, I only work on firewalls, create those views to where that's all that they're working on. That's what they can see. It's like, don't get lost in the noise is what I like to say. Is one of the things. It's like, I want to do my job. I don't want to sift and find and search. And we always talk about needles and haystacks and things like that. It's like if I'm only concerned about these things, and that's what I'm going to be looking at because that's going to automatically pinpoint my eyes. It's automatically going to show me like, hey, this is exactly what we need to be thinking about, right? Like this is what I need to think about. This is where I need to like dive into my product and be able to massage those alerts, make sure that they are actionable, things of that nature. So I don't know if there's anything that you want to add on that too, Rory, but I'm a huge fan of RBAC, especially from a security standpoint.
Absolutely. How hard or soft is your solution as it comes through on this one? I spent, I think a week ago, I was working with somebody that works as a local IT for their city, right, that was using Domotz. And I think the first 40 minutes of our call was, well, last week one of our technicians went out to the site and actually revamped the VLANs on the site, right? So it was just undoing some other technician's work, right? Shouldn't be necessary at all. RBAC gives you the ability to really hone that in.
Definitely. And I think one of the things that I've heard of when we say device profiles as a company is, well, and this is just something that I've heard, and you probably heard it too, Rory, and you guys too can comment. But what I don't want to have to spend a lot of time setting things up. And we always talk about network standardization. Well, that goes hand in hand with any part of IT. That goes in any part, right? Like I need to standardize my SNMP credentials. I need to standardize what these are called. I need to group things. I need to have filters. I need to be able to do my work, but I need to have it standardized so that if something goes wrong, I'm easily able to make an identification and solve a problem. And with device profiles, that's what we're allowing you to do. You're able to set up profiles, you're able to get all that information in there and apply it so that you can have standardization within your monitoring. And if anybody was in my monitoring 101, then you know that standardization is key, especially when I was in networking myself. Like me and Roy were talking about this before we got on here. I'm pretty OCD about stuff because I like standardization to keep us in there. So one of the things that I like to do is I like to go in, and when I'm setting up monitoring is I need to make sure that I'm seeing everything. I need to make sure that my health statistics are there, which means I need to apply my SNMP credentials, my SSH credentials. I need to get in there. I need to be able to see everything, manage it, be able to have that ability, because when something goes wrong, I don't want to be looking. I don't want to be trying to figure out things of which that's going to come across there. I need to know that when I go in there, I have an expectation of all of my switches are set up correctly. They're backing up. They're doing everything of which that they need to do. So when there's a problem, I go straight there so that I can do that. And then, okay, so we're already starting to get a little bit of questions in here, and we don't want to get that to go away here. So let's see.
So Chris, first one I'm
Chris,
seeing
yeah,
for the list.
please do some
Yeah.
live Q&A.
Oh, so the chat will be the best way here to go through. If there may be some opportunities for us to bring on people on future office hours. That'll be something we may want to explore on our site for how to do it. I think there can be quite a bit of value in that one. Finding the right
Definitely.
tech groups for it will be one. If that's something that you're interested in potentially either doing, blog style interviews, something else across the board for them. For the StreamYard today, though, we will be responding to these live as the questions come through, but the chat really is the best way to get that question in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Chris, please ask your questions of which that are within there. And then, Nicholas, what do we have here? We have many clients with multiple internet connections. How can we monitor the status up down of each connection? All right. Well, that's a good one. All right. So if you have multiple internet connections, we're able to monitor those through the interfaces of which they are themselves. You can put Domotz collectors everywhere. That's not going to actually, that doesn't cost you to do anything. So put them up, and then you see people where they'll actually put different connections from different standpoints. They'll put them in from the East Coast, the West Coast, if they're doing in cloud and networking. And then you can actually have those that would come across so that you can see different connection outages of which that are coming across there. Rory, if you want to add anything to that as well.
I do. So either the multiple collectors is a great way to do it. As well, the device that you're using. So oftentimes if you're using like a FortiGate or something across for the multiple WAN, they have a lot of SNMP options to help you see those options come through. So there are some to a specific device as well as you're coming through on those ones. For Fortinet, to my remembrance, the SNMP works pretty well for them. For others, oftentimes they make that accessible either through API. And so looking at the custom scripts, if you're using a different model gateway to have multiple WAN connections, reach out to us, see if we already have a script in process for it. But just reach out to support@domotz.com to get that process started.
Absolutely. So there's several different ways too that when people do status up down. I mean, it's also depending on what are you trying to. Is it really up and down? Are you trying to find bottlenecks? Are you trying to find bandwidth? Are you trying to make sure that your networking is actually like if you're doing BGP, is it actually routing around if there is an issue or things like that of which that are coming through there? So there's multiple ways that you can do that, and Domotz will allow you to do that. Just as we said, like you can have different collector deployments for different sides of it, different routes, and then you can also, as what Rory was just talking about, get into that information as well.
Yeah,
So, David Rogers, new to Domotz. What? Well, welcome. This may be very simple, but can you show how to create those views you are talking about? For example, a view for all switches or a view for all servers? Sure, absolutely. So you're able to do this within your monitoring dashboard. Let me see if I can share my screen real quick. See if I got some stuff here. All right. Give me a moment. All right. Put this over here. Rory, if you want to give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen.
Sure can.
All right, perfect, because you're behind me, so I'm trying to get this on here. All right, so when we're going into our monitoring dashboards, we can also base this off of what we're doing for custom filters that we allow you to do. But you can add these monitoring dashboards, like even if it's connectivity that we're going to go across here. I can select my devices. I can actually go through here. I can do a dynamic selection. I can do a static selection. This is how you're going to be able to set up your custom filters, say switches by device type, or say that I'm wanting to do it based upon something of important that I have here. You can do it based on managed versus monitored. You can do things like that, and you can select them individually, or we can get more advanced. And like I said, when we start to edit some of these in here, this one is one of the switches that I set up before I came here. I put my PoE switches as well as switch device types in here, named it switch setup so that I have this as a filter that would actually come across there. So this is how you can actually hone those in and to get those done. When you're using RBAC, that's when you can actually assign monitoring dashboards to them. So that's the cool part. So if you can create these, then they can create theirs within there too that will limit them down to what they can see based on your settings that you did in your groups or your roles that you're doing within RBAC. So this is just a way that you can either do it if you wanted to be an admin and you wanted to be like top level and say, "Hey, these are the views that I want you guys to use because this is our standardized view. We have an actionable plan for these. We understand these. We have a playbook to help you to be able to get these across, right? Like that's how we're able to get this information that would come across and to be done.
Or
Then
David,
you can
since
also set these up and you can use these filters throughout. So if you're setting up, it's not you probably have heard me say this before. It's not oh my gosh, I have to set this up everywhere. That setup that you just seen there for that for the switches was one that I actually had created in profiles so that I can look at this. It goes across. So you're not setting it up everywhere. When you set up a filter, it's going to be there available for you, so we're saving you time so that you can actually use this throughout. That would come across there. Rory, is there something that you wanted to jump in?
for David, there's one additional thing that I oftentimes see when I'm doing onboarding calls with new customers. Go back into that add tables, really add monitoring table up at the top. One of the
Yep.
things that's nice to know when you're doing that connectivity status and uptime table right at the top there. So we've got quite a few options for other items, and you can add multiples to the page here. So when you're doing that executive page, very easy to go through and see. But up at the top, there's one called device information. There's a little drop down next to that. It's really easy to miss. It's oftentimes just looking and going, oh, these are the basic items that are pre-selected. But you can scroll down just really quite quickly in there. There are other items that can be quite useful to pull in, or potentially even just single out across the board
Serial
here for what
number
you're
is
seeing.
huge, right? Like, I mean, it seems so easy, like, to come across there, but I get so many questions from a lot of people who are trying to get their serial number information because they're trying to update their contracts. They're trying to get their information out there. They're trying to make sure that their maintenance is there. What am I paying on? How am I grabbing that? So I know it may sound simple, but to his point, by adding that extra drop down and getting into to the actual information that Domotz provides for you, serial number is vital. That is going to help you to maintain those contracts and understand what you're actually paying for and doing, especially for your upgrades and everything that's coming across there. And I have LinkedIn messages where people are like, "Where do I go and get serial number from? And how do I get this information?" Because we're coming up on contract deadlines within the quarter. So anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out there as something else too, but also definitely for your uptime, if you're doing device statuses and everything of which that can come in there, and we have them divided up too, right? And there's a cute little we have information that will take you directly in there if you wanted to get into what exactly is this providing, because some people when they look it up down versus SLAs and things like that that come through there, we're able to give you that information that's going to get you the pertinent view for what you need. What you will find, and Rory can probably add to this though, there's so much ability in the customization that you get within Domotz because of the data of which that it grabs that is open for you. And I think that is something that I truly have embraced I guess you could say around here because it's like, oh, well, it would be cool if we had this. And we'll literally have like Giancarlo or Rory or somebody that will come in there and be like, well, we do. And it's like you start looking around and you're like, wow, we really are gathering a lot of information here. So there's definitely a lot of things of which that we're able to do there. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for the moment so I can get back and make sure that we have everything. All right. So what else do we got here?
I think this takes us to
And
Dan.
David, I hope that answered your question just to make sure. Let's see here. And my comments are not scrolling up. Rory, if yours are, I didn't want to
Yeah.
miss anybody.
Nope, we're coming through. I think the next one we have is a question from Dan just about SNMS notifications coming across. There is a way to do it through personal alerts currently to push to the Domotz app on your phone. It's something that it's a curious discussion on our side. We're always wondering about how opinionated we should be, right, as MSPs go, because you just get the whole range of MSPs. You get the ones that say, hey, we're pretty much enterprise level, right? We know what we need, we know what we want, and is that functionality there? Or you get smaller MSPs that are coming up through the ranks saying, well, I think this would be useful for us. In general, we found that SMS generally isn't needed because if you want to push to a phone, usually pushing to something through webhooks or something like Telegram, Slack, Teams, usually covers that need for them, but it is something that we're curious about. In this case, it looks like you might be asking about for your customers directly. I would want a customer-centered alert to be able to push to their SMS. That is an interesting use case. I'd be curious to know if there are other MSPs here or other groups that would find that very, very useful.
And so also there's third-party tools of which that you can use that I have used in the past, like NotePager and things like that you can look into. And that usually solves the problem in a very convenient way that you're able to use with, multiple tools, not just Domotz is what I'm saying. But there is third-party integrations of which that you can try to do across there that would be able to help you out there. But I always like the idea of, and Rory, I think you're kind of alluding to it, right? Is that, hey, I want to be able to actually have it right here and log in and be able to do everything that I need to do, but also the chat feature too. Like like me and Rory we're with you guys, man. We're wanting to do some cool stuff here. But I mean, like one of the things that I am is that, I want to chat directly to you. I want to tell you like what's wrong. Or if I'm a director or something that's going across there, I want to be like, hey, tier one, did you see this come through? Without calling or doing things. And I know that we can just text and to do stuff, but wouldn't it be cool if we were in app and like able to like just present and to do some stuff? So yeah, definitely I think that there is a lot that is there. All right, so we have Matt, he has 2. Oh man, look at you go. All right, so WinRM versus SNMP, which is better? Whichever one is providing you the data that you're needing. So here's something that I find interesting on SNMP. Since I've been around in the industry of monitoring and management for about 22 years, if not more, um, SNMP has always been leaving, right? Like it's going away. We're changing. We're doing everything. The funny thing to that is even your industry leaders like Cisco and everybody on the network side, Nexus, everyone, they still are updating their SNMP because what they have found is it is still reliable that's coming across there. And even API calls, and some of you may know this from Meraki, especially, um, it's more resource intensive, right? So it's more resource intensive and you start to be getting a lot more information from the device and you can actually start seeing some CPU go up and down depending on how fast or slow of which that you're pulling. You can actually see a direct correlation. So SNMP has not gone away yet. I've heard it my whole time in this industry. But WinRM, especially if you're working on Windows devices, you usually find a little bit more information if you're going into there, if you're trying to get some more information from Windows and things like that, that's going across there. But SNMP, especially if you do walks and we have the ability to add SNMP sensors, I mean, it's kind of like a custom OID, right? So what you're trying to look for, you can generally find. Something that I like to do is I like to Google from the vendor. If not, even I'll create support tickets with vendors and be like, hey, I'm trying to monitor XYZ with SNMP or WinRM because you can use both together. Like it's whichever one that you're wanting to do. And they'll generally let you know, like, what is the OID of which that you need to do? What is the script? What is what is the actual right way that you can get that? That's going to be the better version for you for that system because it's definitely it's going to go across from the system because some are going to do better with SNMP and some are going to do better with WinRM, especially when you start getting into like stacks. If you're trying to look at application data and doing a little bit more information that's in there that's outside of like mainframe, that would go there.
Mhm.
So that's my suggestion, is that not one is better than the other, but more of like what is the insight that you're trying to grab and work with the vendor to make sure what you're trying to figure out.
That's the truth. Usually on my side, when I see this question across either the support channel or when we're doing actual specific onboarding for them, usually with the WinRM, you're usually looking at doing endpoint monitoring for them. So you'll be looking something on the PC side. So in those cases, I would usually say the question is actually WinRM or SSH, which my personal opinion is SSH, but not the call for that one.
Yeah. And then Matt was asking about the new Domotz box. Yay! We're all excited about it. And yes, they are starting to appear out there. I believe it's supposed to be at the end of the year, if not the beginning of the year. I would say beginning of the year is when they're going out there. We've already signed off on all of our stuff of which that we needed to do, and right now it's manufacturing and getting them out the door and getting everything that's going to be available. But I would say keep an eye on it, Matt. But I do know that it should be out definitely by the beginning of the year. But I know that they're pushing it really hard and to get out there. And I think we crossing fingers maybe by the end of the year, but beginning of the year is definitely on where we're suggesting it, that for you to have it to be expected. That would be there. The direct specs, I don't have those offhand, but Matt, I can send those to you, or if you want to hit me up on LinkedIn or ask support at Domotz, they'll be able to give you the direct ones. It was just and Rory, unless you know at the top of your head.
I don't know the direct
Yeah,
spec.
I was
I
like,
want
I
to say we doubled the
knew.
RAM and it's a new processor underneath it. So it's still is the
Absolutely.
same application usage that we're expecting for the Domotz box, right? It's not a mystical jump box that you're expecting, full NUC value or something from it. But it should get rid of all of the limitations that we'll oftentimes talk about on our calls for the current Domotz box.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. All right. So let's see, where are we at next? Let me see. My chat is not scrolling correctly.
There were a couple of additional questions from Nicholas, but I
Oh,
actually have a separate chat outside of that one. We'll be able to cover those ones afterwards. Should be solid on that front. There was a comment about Atera adding the RMM and ticketing integrations for them. This is something we keep our eye on closely because we're actually partners with them, right? So like you can buy them through channel with Domotz, and so it's always funny to me, right, that you're like, yeah, you can pay Atera for Domotz, but we're not directly integrated yet with them. I don't know where that sits on the roadmap currently, but it is something that we're aware of.
oh, awesome. Awesome. So, and then who's using dashboards that are the integrated out there too? I mean, like when we're talking about the RMM and ticketing integration, something that I have seen, I'm not going to name the exact MSP, but he got me after one of our webinars, and he was showing me some of his Tableau and Power BI dashboards from the ticketing systems that he was doing with like ConnectWise and a few others of which that he had out there because they were testing. And I was like, I wasn't even like on that realm at that time, but they're using like outside, they're using their own chat GPT. And I'm just throwing this out there for you guys as like just some info. They're using their ticketing systems to actually in in chat GPT to see who is answering them, what type of tickets they are being answered, so that then they can actually see who does best with what types of tickets that are coming out, so that they can auto
Cool.
assign like through a Zendesk or to do something that's there for the best tech that's in those areas for a faster response. So I thought that was interesting. And this is office hours, so I thought I'd give you a little bit of tips and feedbacks from some of the MSPs that I see that are really leaning in on how to use some of these integrations from Domotz to actually better their, not just on monitoring, but just better their MSP to be faster and more resilient and to do some things. I thought that was really cool. So
Oh,
all
that is
right,
such a
and
cool usage.
yeah, I was like, "This is awesome." Like, he was showing me it, and I was like, "This is really cool," because they're able to literally, they have cut down their ticket response time, and it was like 27% immediately, because it was like just able to get those tickets to the right text because it was in the realm. And like it figured out who was doing the best, within the realm of networking that was coming across there, and it also was showing like a clear line between like leveling up people. So it was like how they could actually see like, okay, they're really good at like the tier one things and in which that are coming across, like they're nailing it. So now we need to start getting them into to tier two. but it was naturally showing them that instead of them being like, "Oh, I think you're good," it's like, no, now you have data showing like they know their stuff. I thought that was really cool to use with your actual ticketing systems.
Wow.
Those are fun. All right, so Chris, we find out that speed test feature is never correct and usually much lower than when we do actual user devices. What can you do to fix this? So there's going to be a natural realm of a difference because when you're from the device itself, it's always going to be faster that's going to be there because anytime you add a layer or a separation from a device, it's going to have a different effect on the speed. What we do is we usually adjust what is our threshold limit depending upon where we are. Another thing that I have done is that if I have multiple collectors and no matter what tools that I'm using, because again, I always say I don't care what tool you're using as long as you're using one. But I like to hit things from different sides so that I can see if there's a natural bottleneck. I like to see if there's something in the routing tables of which that is there. I like to make sure that I don't have any firewall issues that are in between. Even if it's depending on the devices or things like that that are coming across there, is there something that's naturally negating me? Because from a device, you're going to have a different response than from a monitoring tool. From the monitoring tools that you have, this is how users are usually experiencing the interaction with those there. So it's giving you a true response of like, how are we actually within the networking as well as the application stack for what we're trying to do? That's where you get that difference that comes across there. And that's something that I think is pretty important. And that's something that I like to do, especially with alerts when I talk about set up your thresholds and don't leave them at 80, 90, is because that's what I want to know. I do tests and I have different multiple ways to test, especially if I'm going to a device that's hosting like SQL, very resource intensive, very read write bidirectional, right? So when I want to make sure that that network is doing great, I want to hit it from who's going to be hitting it for at different levels, set my threshold understanding the network and how it's actually coming across. And so then that way I can actually say like, oh, this is out of realm. Like this is something of which that is happening right now that I can be aware of way before it becomes a problem. So understanding how people are interacting and doing things with devices, that's what a monitoring tool and management tool is going to do, right? Like it's going to give you the awareness from where it sits on how it's interacting with your network, how it's interacting with the application, if that's what you're going towards, right? Like if I'm doing an HTTP or if I'm doing anything that's coming across there, or any TCP like SQL ports or anything that I'm trying to get across there. Rory, if you have anything to.
Well, honestly, you actually drove the direction I wanted on this one. When people talk about speed test, I always think about your 101, 201, and 301s you just did recently, right? Because it comes to one of those ones, well, why are you actually using that, right? We advertise it, it's up there, and it's great to monitor, but what value is your company actually getting from it? Because, I mean, depending on the actual connection, which companies you're using ISPs, whether or not it's a commercial plan and everything, right? There's always that question of, is there the 80% of what I should actually be receiving or not for what's useful there? Using other tools or having other ways around it. There's two things in Domotz we oftentimes suggest as well. There are in one of the monitoring dashboards that's created by default, right, is that network troubleshooting dashboard. Take a look at that one. When we're running those speed tests, we're actually pulling additional data off to see potential jitter or other items as they come across. You're gonna be able to start seeing the history on some of those speeds. When you're wondering about the quality of internet experience across the board there, take a look there as well, right? Rather than just, well, my number was a little bit lower than I expected. Go over and see some of the other stats.
Mhm.
The other one is use something like the external services for the external host or IP. There's a lot of value from the speed test, but it runs right just a couple of times a day as it's going through. Doing something like saying, hey, I know there's a public DNS or potentially our public, IP address, right, for one of the sites that we host. Play something out there to watch it. You're going to get the 30-second response times back from it on the pings. You're going to actually be able to see the latency that you're receiving back from it for usable information for your customers. That can be a very fast way to understand if something has changed recently.
And that's definitely a dashboard, like, if you're wanting to show latency and things of which that are coming across there that I give users. And the reason for that is because they are able to say, "Is it me or is it the network?" Right? Like, but it's an easy conversation that can also stop negated, like, tickets being created or things that are coming across there. They can see that something is there. They can see that you're on it, right? Because if I'm if I say this all the time, if I have an alert, it has to be actionable. And one of the things that I like to do with my RMMs too is that when that alert goes out, I have two different emails from that RMM that's going out, one to my tech to get onto it and one to my user or my customers, right? To say we're on it because the ticket has been released. We were already there, so that it prevents a lot of phone calls and distraction at the time, because and it also gives you a confidence, with any users that are, using your network, or even customers if you're an MSP, to be like, "Oh, there is a okay, cool. Like, this is fine. I don't have to call. This is what's happening." And usually in that email, it'll be like, we will get back to you with a response, and, and things of which it's going to come across there. Use your tools. Use your tools to do the groundwork for you, so that you are able to, when we're doing these integrations and using this information, like, use them to better your business and your reactivity, right? Because I want to respond. I don't want to just be knee jerk react, because that can sometimes cause problems, because the network doesn't change that much, right? And so it's like, if we're putting band-aids in and you don't save it, right? You don't save your running to your startup, and then, a month down the road when something comes on in a maintenance and it reboots, well, that fix is not documented, right? And it's like, and you're back to square one. And it's like, little things like this, it helps you to get the awareness, it helps you to use your tools, it helps you to relay and communicate with your users and your clients, to make sure that everybody is on the same page, and it builds confidence in your networking team as a whole.
Exactly.
All right, Rory,
Larry
if you
has a
want to,
couple of follow-up
yeah.
comments just at the end of the chat on those ones that are useful. He mentioned that the VMs versus the Domotz Box collectors oftentimes have that speed difference. This is a limitation that we're aware of for the Domotz Box currently.
Mhm.
Usually, you're going to get speeds if you're on a gigabit connection on the Domotz Box somewhere between 4 and 600s, are where you're going to see, even if it is a true gig up and down connection. That is something that the new Domotz Box should solve, along with other items like SNMP version 3 being a little bit stronger there. So we're excited for that box to go out and help alleviate some of that, because it's always interesting to see the MSPs that care and say, well, I mean, there's a ton of ways I could get a speed test, versus the ones that are like, oh no, this is essential.
Definitely essential. All right. So Dan has put, any way to configure alerting for custom SNMP OID sensor thresholds. It's hard to get full alerting for customers with their existing hardware if Domotz doesn't have supported templates for more hardware vendors. Roy, do you want to take on to this one?
This is one of the reasons we're so excited about profiling. There
I
are
know.
some updates coming down the line for it to make it even easier across the board for them. There are definitely ways as you're going across through. When you're actually adding them through, you can go through, we'll show you the ones that we recognize have some responses coming back from the devices themselves. But once you have that device set up the way you want, there's a little button right on your right side tools where you're gonna be able to go down and say, hey, let's make a profile out of this, right? Let's grab that, pull it in, and start being able to use it. One of the coolest things about that is that if you are doing lots of onboarding, rather than waiting for Domotz to discover, you happen to know that these devices are ones that should respond to those MIBs, right? It's common, it's what you're placing in your stack. Rather than waiting for Domotz to say, oh, we recognize SNMP responded, we recognize these items, just apply it. You should be done potentially with new onboarding in like 20 minutes, right? You'll have those things set up, go through, and then just enable your alerts afterwards for what you want off of them. But most definitely, those custom OIDs, if you find that you are using a standard one of the things that our team is hoping for, let us know if there are standard sets that you're just using all the time for the profiles. We really want to start being a little bit more opinionated on that one. Like with the RBAC, right, where we said, okay, we're going to give you just a couple of default categories that you can use. We would love to do that with profiles. Some of that
Yeah.
will just be based off of what we think will be useful. This actually goes, there's a question from Nicholas as well in here that's very similar about the best way to use profiles, whether or not you want it to add or whether or not you want it to override as you come across on them. And this plays directly into that, right? The question here will be, do you want to have a standard set where you're just little pieces at a time, right? We know we'd want the interface monitoring here, so let's do a profile for that. Make that one an additive one. But if you know exactly, hey, this is the same stack we're placing in everywhere, right? Standardize that. Just do an overwrite, because then at that point, maybe trigger that overwrite by API, right? Do something to weekly to make sure that even if you do have a rogue tech that likes to make random changes that haven't been pushed across the board yet, right? That you can reset the device to that baseline that you expect.
But we also have, where we tell you there's a change of which that has happened to the configuration. Use that. Like, oh my goodness, use that. I just wanted to chime in there for a second, because it will tell you if there is a configuration change. So that when you're doing some of those audits or trying to figure something out, you can track it, and you'll be able to revert that back, and be able to help you quickly to know what was going on, and when, right? And that's the thing that with me, as I'm always like, what changed? Like, what changed? Who did it? Where's it at? Let's look at this holistically. But if you're also making changes, and if you're in that zone of like, hey, We made a change. We're going to discuss this at a CR meeting, a change request meeting, and we're going to see if this is going to be validated. Before we do that, you have it in Domotz in the change history. You can use that with that. You can actually use that in your tickets. Something that I have done is literally with tools that do the change is, if I've made a change that was supposed to have solved a problem and we leave it there for a couple of days before we have like kind of a look back on what's going on, kind of a deep dive of like why did it happen? What I like to do is I use that change request in my in to validate. Is this worth it? Do we revert it? Is there a better way? And I have a history of what was solvable in the moment. But also, like if you're doing an upgrade on firmware or if you're doing an upgrade on things and you're using these monitoring dashboards, especially, folks, you have so much data to prove if it was worth the upgrade or why you need to revert. And that is something that in my lifeline has, helped me tremendously is to prove, especially if something goes wrong, right? Because it's like, oh my gosh, you've been planning this upgrade for 2 months and why did you revert it? And it took, instead of 4 hours, it took 6 hours because you had to revert it and da 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 da. And it's like, here's why. As soon as we did this, like firewalls went through the roof, or oh my gosh, like everything went down because it didn't have the right connections, or hey, this like totally ate up our memory when we upgraded this. I can prove it in my monitoring dashboards so that I have data to back up why my decision was made. And I just wanted to there's so many things that you can use this for. And I love monitoring tools because it's data driven and it's helping me make the best decisions to make sure that we're doing things. I wanted to show on the profiles, and that's why I have this up here, just a little bit of fun with it, right? Because we're so excited about it, as like Rory said, and for you, Nicholas, as well, like looking at this. If I'm setting this up, if you remember, I did my monitoring dashboards. It was like, where's that filter at? I was already able to pull in my filter. Again, this is so important. These filters are across Domotz, of which that comes in there. I'm able to put these in. And then if I'm pulling in a filter and I'm like, hey, you know what? Wow, man, did I actually set that up correctly, right? Like when I'm actually doing the profiles, look at the devices of which that are there, make sure that it's valid. And if you need to add another one, you can add multiple filters to a profile. This is how we're trying to help you to be able to do this. Like if you're trying to make a customization for, say, the voice team, well, they're going to need to have their voice over IP. They're going to need to have probably some of their gateways that are there. They need to have all of this information that's going to be in there. That might be multiple filters. You've already done the work, just add them in, right? Like that's how we're able to do that. And then once we have the filter of which that is within there, we're able to use it. I'm able to name it. I can add my description, GDPR, anyone, right? Like if you have GDPR for anything of which that you're coming across there, you have to document it and ticket it and go across here. The description is going to allow you to do that to be GDPR compliant. So this is something that is going to allow you to have those that compliance, honestly, right? Like throughout the product, because you're able to label and define and to make sure that you have notes, you can actually react, you can actually state what is going on here. So high level on profiles. So this one that I'm looking at, I can actually go through here and say, hey, I want to change the device type on these. What if I wanted to add something cool? You know what I mean? Like I wanted to change them over. This is vital because we're doing the device types from here. But what if you're like, you know what? That's a switch. That's a switch. This is a new one. This is something that which is available. You can be able to change that now at mass, right? And I want to make sure that you know that. I can state if this is going to be important. I can change my location for these. I can change zones of which that I want to go through here. I can apply an SNMP credential to these of which that I need to have. This is helping you ramp up. So when you're getting that, time to value that we all talk about, once you get in here, you install your collectors, you can use profiles to set this thing up to have a standardization that's not only going to mimic your network standardization, but create your monitoring standardization. That way, when I come through here, if I'm onboarding new clients, if I'm onboarding a new floor, if I'm onboarding new devices, I can just apply the profile because it's standardized and it's quickly set up. It's already starting to get your insights. You're unlocking these devices. You're seeing the information that's going to be in your monitoring dashboards. It allows you to be onboarded faster and more efficiently by adding their credentials that would come through here. Shared alerts, as people were talking about, we can actually turn these on. We can look at to add these. We can overwrite the device that's automatically on it. We want to add to the shared alerts that's going to be there. This allows you to have that implementation to where if a tier tech comes in and looks at his monitoring dashboard that you have set up through RBAC that he is only allowed to see, he has an expectation that all of these devices have the same alert and I have an action plan. They have the same SNMP and I'm seeing the same insight. They have the same setup for zones and filtering of which that I can easily do my job. When you create that standardization, you create efficiency in your monitoring and you create efficiency in keeping that network up. And then we can go into the SNMP sensors, like what we were talking about earlier. We're able to actually then add the sensors here, add as many as you're wanting, set up a custom one. There's something, like for Matt's point, like, hey, maybe I called the vendor and he said, here's the OID that I'm looking for. Let's create it. And then we can apply it to all those of which that you're going across there. We have the basics of which all of these of which that are coming through here, you're able to apply quickly. So this is how you get that standardization of monitoring. Make sure you have all the insight, have your shared alerts, have your information that's there. Even if I want to go into my TCP, I can do the same thing for it. I can then apply this profile against my filter of which is coming across there, clone it if I'm wanting to just change it up and change the filters that's there. I can delete it if I want to delete it, right? Like the things of which that are coming across there. But the value that you get in this to helping you standardize your monitoring, understand your monitoring, be able to have those dashboards, work with your views, be able to create that, have your alert dependency set up when we're setting these up through the integration. This is what's going to allow you to actually dive into your monitoring and have a set expectation. That is what we're wanting to do. We need you to understand monitoring, and that's just for anybody, right? Like I have my whole NMS series of which that came across, which people, I've been helping them, offline as well. It, we have our own jobs. When I started out, me and Roy were talking about this early. I went through Cisco training at Votech before everything was online, and when I went through my CCNP, it was like we were learning how to do our job. Nobody told me how to monitor ever. So it was kind of like, wait a minute, like I know this is set up right. I'm using tools I can see, but I'm not seeing the health of my network. Like what is working, what is not. Did my route work correctly? Did it not work correctly? Monitoring gives you that awareness. And as we were talking about earlier, from a user standpoint, not the actual device, like that's some of the things that we do, right? Like on SQL and doing things. It's like if it's running fast and it's doing everything that it needs to do, on the box, whatever application it is, it's running perfectly. But then we go through like, your F5s, or if we're doing GTM and LTMs and things like that, there's a delay, there's a problem, there's something that's there. This is how you get that in understanding because it looks great when I'm on it. That's not the story. How is the user interacting with it? Monitoring and management is how you get that information that's going to come through. I can get on
I
a
love it.
soapbox all day long with monitoring because I just love it so much.
This is why our internal Slack conversations are always so good, because I mean, just passionate back and forth always as they go on these ones. In direct response to Nicholas's question, my favorite way to answer that, right? How to have opinion, right? How should I set up these profiles? Way I would say use something like Draw.io, use something like Lucid or Miro, right? You probably already have some sort of documentation program that may allow you to go out on these ones. My favorite rule for this is that, how many clicks can I get it down to, right? So check your SLA. What is it that we actually need to set up for our customers? That's how I would organize what I'd use the profiles by. So it would vary a little bit by MSP, depending on what they actually care about. With that though, what's the fastest way to what they care about for it? Find out which one has the fewer clicks. Just do a couple of quick boxes. My expectation is to take me probably about 10 minutes to do a workflow review of those and say, oh, yep, nope, I know how I would want to organize this in the future.
Yeah, definitely. And I think something that I always like to tell people, and I know I've said it several times here because, if you hear it 3 times, you remember it. But if it's an actionable alert, you better have an SLA. Like to your point when you're talking about SLAs, what is your SLA? Match that actionable alert and have a workflow because you want them to see that alert and automatically know what dashboard to look in Domotz to help them solve it. Automatically, what are my available options to do it? And you are increasing, right, productivity, and you're increasing your efficiency tremendously when you have that. Understand why you have the alert. Do not just set up an alert because you think it looks good unless you are the only one receiving that alert until you can validate it. But because you don't want to create noise. When you create noise, it's like this ocean of noise to where things just do not seem important. Everything can't be on fire, right? And so it's like, what is my critical? What is the information of what should I have? And I see that Brian has one new to Domotz, hoping to migrate from PRTG. However, I'm struggling with getting set up monitoring and alerts. Are there any tutorials aside from the onboarding guides? Yes. So there's Domotz Academy. You can also like reach out to us. Like we're happy to help. Support is amazing. We have onboarding specialists that can help you too. And what I like to do is what was your pertinent information from the tool that you were using prior? And then what are you trying to do within Domotz? That way you don't get that clutter that's within there. Like if you're going through your alerts and you're like, this thing's never even went off. I don't even know what this one is for. Do not set that up within in Domotz. Let's start with pertinent information first. Let's get to the core problems and then you start building. Because if you don't have that foundation of monitoring, no matter what tool you're using, it's not going to give you the results that you need. And so I would rather help you understand, and that's what our onboarding specialist, as well as our Domotz Academy, tries to do. We want you to have that foundational layer of monitoring and management so that you have the right information, you're understanding what you're doing, and you have the confidence in your tool.
Oh, I love some of the comments that are coming in. So Matt actually specified that, Spencer shouted out for some of the time that he spent with him on the conversion process here. Definitely. Thanks, Larry, as well for the comment on the sport side. The people they hire here are absolutely amazing. You'll actually see my boring background here is because I'm in office, and a lot of the support team on the US hours comes in as well. So I get to see them working daily, and it's absolutely fantastic. They're just
Yes.
absolute A players.
Yeah, we're very thankful for the passion of which that we have here. Definitely. Because I think I watched a meme the other day, or it was a kind of a TikTok the other day, and I have to like just let you guys know this, but it was showed like a business guy on one side, and it showed a guy that was emotional on the other. And one guy was completely passionate but didn't care about the details, and the other guy was like only about the details and nothing. And they were like, "This doesn't work in business. You got to have both, right? Like you have to be able to have the drive and you have to be able to have the awareness so that you can actually get to what you're wanting to do and have that to be driven out there." Larry said, speaking of that, will there ever be new device categories? Yes. So they're actually working on that. We're actually doing some things that's going to come across there. There might be a little customization in your future as well that we're going to be able to do. And so Chris is working on that. The oh God, I'm talking about passion. Our PMs here, top, love it. Love it. They are doing some really great work. I know a lot of people like, when you seen what was accomplished in October, those were huge lifts, right? And so I'm so happy because those were foundational levels as we're talking about having being your foundations that are allowing us to really jump forward now. And I think the engineering team has that passion behind them. Our product team has it. It's such a cohesive bond internally here of everybody talking to everybody to make sure we're listening to you all for your feedback. Like this session now, that like we're making sure that we're talking back to the PMs and everybody to make sure that they understand like where were the questions, what were your concerns, what do you want, customizations, like let's do some of these device categories. Absolutely. So this is some of the things that are coming across there. And then Dan said plans to assign shared alerts to a site org. A technician from customer A could accidentally add a shared alert attended for customer B recipients. This is where we're going to have RBAC that's going to come in there and into play. So when you're doing the shared alerts, and when we're doing technician A to technician B, if he's not able to see those or things of which that are coming across there, he can't apply the shared alert because he wouldn't be able to actually do that at this time. So working things together, right? Like that's how we're able to do that. If you are not seeing RBAC in Domotz, this is probably something cool to let them know. You go into the portal and then under Teams, it will say, "Oh, do you want to enact, and actually set up your RBAC," of which that would come across here. And then that will allow you to enable that. So you won't see it on the left-hand pane navigation at that time. You have to actually go into your account and then to be able to see that and to turn that on. But it is out there for you to be able to use. If you run into any problems, like if you have collaborated accounts, I believe, is that correct? The team collaboration accounts, Rory?
That is correct.
Then yeah, it'll have like a, hey, like there's something we need to talk about first. Contact support, they'll be able to get you on the fast track to be able to get that on there. They just want to make sure that they do that correctly so that you're not breaking any connections with teams or collaborations.
I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. I think that it is coming across. Are you seeing it on your side yet, Destiny? There we
See
go.
now.
when we're coming through. So this is one that has not done that conversion yet. So if you are completely new, right, you've just started your trial or something this week, you won't see this because you actually already have that access management available to you. Any new account is just being set up with it by default. But if you haven't made that change yet coming through, you'll see this enable functionality. There's some good warnings just right off and immediately for explaining what we'll do if you have field operators, what we'll do, where we'll push the account and team members, and then potentially also that that warning. So this account actually does have a collaboration. I'll show you right here that if I go through, I'm actually gonna hit the enable. It's gonna give me a warning. Hey, you actually have some collaboration. Either reach out to support, right? That's a great way to help us figure out what's there, or potentially generate a report for you if you have lots of collaboration across the board for it. But easy way to come through is start enabling that access. Once you actually enable that, you will see what was shown just a little bit before. Let me pull up Domotz portal, access management. You'll see something that looks a little bit more like this. User groups, roles, actually called access management, able to go through and do the creation there for it.
Perfect. All right. So Garrett said, any plans for NetFlow? So we've actually been having discussions on expansion out for networking in general, like just how, more information of which that we can gather. How can we get a little bit better into that? Those are in those conversations, but they are not actually like, oh, it's going to be quarter specific at that time. But these conversations are happening. So, I mean, flow data is crucial. And we're also making sure that we're able to do that correctly, and also make sure that it is, as very resource intensive in doing things. And we don't want to affect any of the degradation. So we've got some pretty cool telemetry and some different ideas of which that we're wanting to do on that. Please watch our release notes. Come to the office hours and ask these questions, because we're definitely going to be giving this feedback, because this just helps amplify your voices. And that's what we're truly trying to do, is just amplify where the needs are for you all. How do we meet you where you're at? So definitely, if there's like feature requests, if there's comments, concerns, anything, like we've done all day, we did not hide any comment. We addressed every one of which that was coming across there. So that's what this is for. And this is for you.
Yes.
So if there's suggestions, like we'd seen at the beginning, can we have like a talking back and forth? I am actually looking at right now a tool that will support some of those kind of things, to where we can actually have an interaction that would be voice and actually just conversations that's going to come across there. So that is something that I am definitely working on. And so hopefully, maybe like when Katie's amazing office hours are coming through here, we will be able to have a different platform that maybe allows some more just conversations to take place instead of through the comments. So
There's a lot of
I
value in
definitely
that.
am taking that feedback that's coming back there. And Larry, definitely, absolutely, more accurate bandwidth utilization would be great. So we can look into that. We can see like what is some of that bandwidth utilization of which that we're trying to see there. I like the see it, find it, fix it. Like what are we doing like on the bandwidth size? Do we have a mix match, things like that that's coming across there? So definitely keep the information that was coming through there. And yes, I will definitely share my email address, because if you guys don't know, I have been helping quite a few people from all of these, to make sure if it's not me that can address it or help them, then it's definitely somebody that I can get them in there. Definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm definitely like love that. Like I love the chats that I've had. That's how I found out that really cool RMM story with the ticketing system. I thought that was amazing. So if you guys have any more stories, like please let me know, because I love solving problems, and I love hearing how people are solving problems that you wouldn't just naturally think could be solvable. And we're humans, right? Like with the use of AI, and that's something that I really love, is that we're putting the human centric side of it, of like asking questions to data now. And I think that's amazing, because it's like we've always had these questions, but it's like, how do we get it in there? And so seeing some of these MSPs and some of you guys telling me some of the stories and what you're trying didn't work, trying really worked. Those are really cool. And I like to share those out with people, because I think that, we want to be your ally. We want to help you, because, as long as we want to make sure that we're helping you solve your problems, right? At the end of the day, it's like, anybody can be up here talking, anybody can have a product, anybody can do anything that's coming across there. I think something that Rory and I both have a definite passion for is, are you using the tool? And can you make it better? Like, we would love to help you, like, figure some of this stuff out. We wanna make sure that we're doing this, and we wanna help you to be able to solve those problems, and I don't want you to struggle with it. So if you are, let us know so we can help, maybe create some content that would come across there. Like,
Makes a
absolutely will. I
huge
mean, I'm over
difference.
content now. I'm trying to make sure I'm meeting everybody and answering questions and providing it in the formats of which that they want. So you're going to start seeing more videos on YouTube. You're going to start seeing the Domotz Academy is getting a whole new redo. Jace is on that and he is doing amazing. We're trying to do it. We're just trying to help you solve those problems that you need to be solved.
With that, Destiny, one of the things that I'd say, your email's out there now. That one should be very easy. Feel free to send her direct feedback on those ones for features. But Garrett, one of the things that you could do for that NetFlow that would be absolutely amazing would be the ability to say, hey, this is just the use case that I'm looking for, right? Either this is how I've used it in past tools, or this is the problem that I'm trying to solve that I think it would help solve for. Knowing that up front, it isn't always intuitive, right? Across the MSP space. Sometimes we're like, oh, this tool would be really useful for this, without even realizing it's a gold mine for other opportunities. So sharing your use case with us would make such a big difference. Feel free to send that to support, send that directly to Destiny. Just get it out there for you if you have the moment to type up, this is what I was thinking.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we have 5 minutes left. So if nobody else has any questions or anything there, I just wanted to take a few moments and just say thank you. I appreciate it. I think this was a successful office hours. We got some great questions in here. And this is the stuff that we can't just create on the fly and try to just speak at you with a megaphone because that's what we didn't want to do. We really wanted to invite you in and kind of see kind of just who we are at Domotz. I mean, and we're definitely problem solvers that are passionate, but it's one of those things where we just want to have a conversation with you. And I appreciate you taking the time. I know time is so valuable, especially for everybody that is out there right now. The holidays and everything are coming up. And if you were in the government, like, and things like that, I mean, I understand time is very valuable and I understand there's a lot of things done. So thank you for spending your day, just even a portion of it with us.
Looking through, I'm not seeing any that I think we missed. I think we've covered them pretty good for the immediate ones. I think the takeaway from this for our team, right, is definitely let's see if we can get something where we can get some of the voices on here. Getting that kind of community would make such a big thing.
Oh, we got one more.
Matt's coming in.
Matt's coming in hot.
We're just staring at the chat.
I know.
There's so much pressure on this question.
Thank you, Larry. We try so hard. I found the Explorer window is a great dashboard for a server room or not. Nice.
Yeah. Yep, that is the truth, especially when we're looking at it.
All right. Yeah, no, I like that. I found the Explorer window is a great dashboard for a server room or not. Fantastic. And for your information, we have a gentleman who has been here on the sell side as well as, done some support, who is now part of our PM team, who is specifically going to be working on insights and dashboards. Keep your eye out for that. I am so excited because he was working with you guys one-on-one and he was able to do that. Yes, all the collectors in the map is amazing. I love that portion as well. So yeah, again, thank you all for the comments and feedback. And thank you, Matt, for sharing that with everybody here so that people can kind of put that in their head for like server rooms and NOCs and everything of which that need to be coming across there. And if you guys please join us again for our next office hours. You will be getting information on social. You'll have it in your email and things like that. They're going to continue and be with different people too, so that we can kind of get some business side if you're wanting that information, more support, more sales, anything of which that you're wanting to do that's going to come across there. So thank you all and have a wonderful day.